GATE 2014 Civil Engineering Set 1 Question 19. In reservoirs with an uncontrolled spillway, the peak of the plotted outflow hydrograph A lies outside the plotted inflow hydrograph, B lies on the recession limb of the plotted inflow hydrograph, C lies on the peak of the inflow hydrograph, D is higher than the peak of the plotted inflow hydrograph. The relevant NPTEL reference has been listed. So in the topic of reservoir routing, two concepts are quite commonly used, that are peak attenuation and time lag. So we will visualize this on a graph. So if we indicate the flow on the y-axis and the time on the x-axis, let us assume this to be our inflow hydrograph. The outflow hydrograph for a reservoir routing gets delayed. So the peak of the outflow hydrograph will be found after a certain lag time. This is because the reservoir will reduce the flow which is in excess. And it is also noted that the peak of the inflow and the peak of the outflow, there is a certain reduction, that is called as peak attenuation. It is also noted that the peak of the outflow hydrograph is formed on the recession limb of the inflow hydrograph, as it can be seen here. So as seen in the previous slide, if we assume the flow on the y-axis and the time on the x-axis, and you assume the inflow hydrograph, so two features are applied on the outflow hydrograph. The first feature is that the peak is attenuated, so there is a certain reduction in the peak amount between the inflow and outflow, so the peak of the outflow will be lower due to the construction of a reservoir. Another feature is that between the peaks there will be a certain lag time. Outflow hydrograph's peak will be formed with a certain delay due to the reservoir, and also the peak of the outflow hydrograph forms on the recession limb of the inflow hydrograph. So the peak of the plotted outflow hydrograph lies on the recession limb of the plotted inflow hydrograph, which is option B. The relevant NPTEL reference has been listed.